I may say that, I mean, if I get the chance to say, I hope
making justice to the people of Jamaica. Justice is your right, and we're making it easy.
Justice being aired from its offices at 61 Constant Spring Road in St. Andrew, Jamaica. I'm your host, Andre Earl, attorney at law. With the latest COVID-19 confirmed cases numbering some 257 of our brothers and sisters here in Jamaica, there can be no denying that life as we know it has changed. However, despite the challenges created by COVID-19, we must look for the rainbows, the bright side. This event is designed to, firstly, explain to the public how the justice sector has been adjusting its operations to best public during this COVID-19 era, and also its public concerns as articulated through questions that will come in. The Ministry of Justice is mandated to administer legislation, deliver justice services, and provide policy support and analyses on justice issues. It has responsibility for several units and agencies, including the Attorney General's Chambers, the Administrator General's Department, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Legal Aid Council, and the Victim Services Division. The Justice Ministry also works in close alignment with the Judiciary. The main customer-facing programs of the ministry are restorative justice, child diversion, the Legal Aid Council, and the Victim Services Division. I'm honored, and you are privileged, to have a very distinguished panel this morning, led by the Honorable Delroy Chuck, Minister of Justice. The Honorable Delroy Chuck, QC, MP, has served this administration as Justice Minister since 2016. However, he has worked steadily in politics and the justice sector for more than 25 years as a Member of Parliament, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and as a vibrant member on several justice-related committees. Minister Chuck brings an infectious, yes, I did use that word, infectious passion to his work as Justice Minister. He's a strong proponent for restorative justice, child justice, support for victims of crime, and a justice system that is accessible and fair to all Jamaicans and that works efficiently. His Honor, Mr. Chester Crooks, who is sitting to the immediate left of the Honorable Minister, was appointed Chief Judge of the Parish Courts in January 2020 after having acted in the post for 2 years. His career in the bar spans more than 20 years, with increasingly substantial areas of responsibility, including Crown Counsel at the Office of the DPP and resident magistrate assigned to the parish of St. Elizabeth. To my immediate left is the rose amongst the thorns, Mrs. Kadiesh Jarrett-Fletcher, who is Director of Communications Client Services at Court Administration Division. Mrs. Fletcher is a communications specialist, lecturer, talent and voice coach, and television producer with extensive experience in strategic planning and mass communication. Her training is both local and international, and her professional experience has seen her managing publications, special events, social media, and film productions. She is currently the Director of Communication, Client Services, and Information of the Court Administration Division. We also have on the panel Mr. Hugh Faulkner. Mr. Faulkner was appointed Executive Director of the Legal Aid Council in November 2008. However, he has been practicing as an attorney since September 1996. He's a graduate of the Norman Manley Law School and has dedicated himself to providing service to Jamaicans. In this regard, he has served on several boards and tribunals, including the board of the Michael University College, the Toll Law Authority, JIPO, and the Jamaica Mortgage Bank. He's also a former member of the Teachers' Appeal Tribunal. And we have a panelist who will be joining us via Zoom. He's Mr. Osborne Bailey, Director of Victim Services Division. Mr. Bailey is a counseling psychologist, the Director of Victim Services in the Ministry of Justice. His work includes the development and coordination of the ministry's technical support mechanism to provide support for victims of crime through its 14 parish offices. And finally, we have Dr. Christopher Malcolm, Senior Lecturer, Faculty of Law, University of the West Indies, who will be talking with us this morning about mediation and renegotiation good offices. He will explain that to us a little bit more. So at this time, without further ado, I invite the Honorable Minister to make his presentation.
Thank you very much, Andre. And also, let me take the opportunity to welcome our listeners nationwide, and also those who are viewing us live streaming, because the program is being live streamed across Jamaica and the diaspora. We hope you will participate by sending in questions, because this is an opportunity for the listeners and viewers to interact and to have some of their concerns and their questions responded to by all members of the panel, including myself, even though I will remain quiet as much as possible so that the experts can answer the questions. But I want to thank all the listeners and viewers who are with us, and to let you know that notwithstanding this pandemic crisis, the crisis that we're in, that the courts and the Justice Ministry and the government were still open for business, yes, in very limited circumstances. I want to congratulate the Chief Justice, who in fact have set up a COVID-19 stakeholder panel that meets regularly, and Kadiesh will explain more fully who are members of that panel, because this panel is important to those who seek to access justice, to the extent that they can participate via their attorneys to get in touch with the President, and the President can bring the concerns, the issues, and challenges faced by litigants and those who seek to access the courts. Our Chief Parish Court Judge is here, and he will also respond to many of the concerns that people have, because trials have been put off until later in the year, because consistent with no large gathering and social distancing, it's not possible to have trials. But the courts are still operating, yes, in very limited circumstances. But if there are emergency matters, custody matters, a wide variety of matters that Kadiesh and the Chief Parish Court Judge will explain, you can access information and participate. More importantly, if persons need legal advice, they can always get in touch with Hugh Faulkner, and he will explain how persons can get in touch. What is important to note is that in this crisis, the Chief Justice, the Supreme Court judges, Parish Court judges, attorneys, we're all looking how we can innovate and be creative in responding to the challenges in the justice system. In particular, as is happening right now, we can go live stream, people can ask questions, And that is exactly how the courts are operating now and may continue to operate using technology. Kadiesh will explain that bail applications are taking place. Matters such as case management, matters such as any access to the courts, the registrar of the courts, can be dealt with by email. And there are a number of matters that will be responded and engaged in using live stream, Zoom, or any other facility. What is important is for all litigants and attorneys to know that the court has not shut down. It is operating and many services are being offered.
Thank you very much, Honorable Delroy Chuck. We're going to go to a commercial break on Nationwide News Network. But for those of you joining us via the internet and other social media platforms, we'll continue with discussion at this time. So, Minister, thank you very much again for outlining that to us. And I just want to indicate to those who are joining us via the different platforms that you can ask your questions via Zoom and all the social media platforms and Slido using the event code Access Justice. Access Justice. So, Minister, in terms of the courts or the justice system generally, you are saying that it's not necessarily business as usual, but structures have been put in place to allow different services to the public.
And I'm going to ask, if you don't mind, Andre, for Kadiesh to make her presentation and indicate what services are being offered, and also for the Chief Parish Court Judge to indicate to the public the wide variety of services that are still accessible and available to the public. So maybe Kadiesh could go ahead.
Thank you very much, Minister, and good morning to our viewers and listeners. As a judiciary, we have been significantly impacted by the measures that the executive has had to put in place for the safety of all Jamaicans. And certainly in the initial stages of the measures, when gatherings of 20 persons or more were prohibited, we did adopt some measures that would have allowed us at the time to still convene court. But when the measures became more stringent, when we got to the point where gatherings of 10 persons or more were prohibited and social distancing was being promoted, we recognized very early that it was going to be very difficult for us to convene court as we normally would. And as such, the challenging and difficult decision was taken to scale back our operations. And by scale back operations, I mean that we are only hearing emergency matters, we are facilitating guilty pleas, and matters which can be heard on paper are being facilitated. Certainly at the Court of Appeal, case management conferences listed before a single judge, they are being heard by teleconferencing or other electronic means, and the registrar is advising all the parties as to how their matters will be dealt with.
Sorry, just to interrupt there a bit, Kadiesh, sorry. Just want to indicate that for those of you who are returning on Nationwide, the listeners, you are listening now to Mrs. Jarrett-Fletcher from Court Administration Division, who is telling you about how it is that the courts operate at this particular time. Thank you, Kadiesh.
Okay, so let me begin again with the Court of Appeal. Case management conferences, which are scheduled before a single judge, those are being heard by teleconferencing or other electronic means, and the registrar is contacting the parties to advise them as to how their matters will be treated. Matters scheduled for hearing are being done on paper. That means that written submissions are being taken where that is possible for some matters. Any matter that requires submissions, those are being set for COVID dates. Now, in the event that there is an emergency matter requiring oral submissions, that will be done by by teleconferencing or other electronic means. As it relates to persons appellants who are on bail, Bail is extended in the initial stage to May 11, and that date will be under review based on the measures that are being put in place by the executive. All judgments of the court, and this started from as far back as March 23, all judgments of the court are being handed down by teleconferencing or other electronic means. As it relates to the Supreme Court, all sittings for the Home Circuit Court Division of the Gun Court, the High Court Division of the Gun Court, the Western Regional Gun Court, and the Home Circuit Court, all of those sittings are suspended in the initial stage until May 11, but again, we are reviewing that date based on the measures that are being put in place by the executive. Bail is extended for those persons who are on bail. Bail is extended until May 11. Now, there are jurors who were summoned to appear on April 15. Now, clearly that did not happen. Those jurors are now scheduled to appear on May 11. But again, that date will be reviewed by the COVID-19 committee, which has been put in place by the Chief Justice. And let me just say here that that committee has representatives from all the bar associations, the Jamaican Bar Association, the Cornwall Bar, the Northern Law Society. All those persons have representatives on that committee. There is a representative from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. There are representatives from the police, from the Department of Corrections, as well as persons from within the court system. The Ministry of Justice has also, through the Permanent Secretary, has also sat on that committee at different points. Now, we encourage persons, because we are offering limited services, we encourage persons to make use of the emergency call center, which we have implemented. Now, in more instances than not, if you call the emergency call center and to check on your matter, you may not need to proceed to a court building. So we encourage persons to call the numbers. If you visit any of the websites, the Court of Appeal website, the Supreme Court website, the Parish Court website, or the Court Administration Division website, you will find those numbers. But I'll give you the toll-free number here. It's 1-888-429-5269. 1-888-429-5269. And there are some other numbers, but those are on the websites. Persons may also email us at customerservice@cad.gov.jm to check on their matters and to see the status. So those are just some of the things. We are also facilitating bail hearings by video conferencing. We can facilitate bail hearings from St. James, Trelawney, the Central Police Station, the Halfway Tree Police Station, as well as the General Penitentiary. I will hand over to His Honor Mr. Crooks, and Judge will speak more definitively to the issues and the measures for the parish courts.
Thank you, and good morning to all your viewers and listeners. I don't think there's much more I need to add to what Kadiesh has said. As a matter of fact, I was saying, good for her. She's leaving me with nothing to do. In terms of the parish courts, well, as is now common knowledge, we had to take the extraordinary step based on agreements from the meetings with this, the COVID Stakeholders Committee, to significantly scale down operations. And of course, in St. Catherine, we had to take the extraordinary step to shut down the courts pending the final determination of when the, for want of a better term, the parish-wide curfew will be lifted for St. Catherine. That being said, we have maintained a skeleton staff at the parish courts to deal with what we deem to be emergency matters, just such as habeas corpus applications, bail hearings, in terms of the family court and the children's court, matters dealing with domestic violence, maintenance payments, and of course, emergency matters involving children. And of course, the senior parish judge for each parish has the ultimate discretion to deal with any other matters that they deem to be emergencies as they see fit. So that's basically what the parish courts are doing in a nutshell, following on what Kadiesh has just said.
George, if I could just
Sure.
ask a question, either to you or to Kadiesh. Somebody is asking if they have a case that has been set in the courts during the period of abnormality, if I could call it that, how do they go about actually rescheduling that matter?
All right. Well, from at least the judicial standpoint, the decision was taken for the period where the the court's operations have been significantly scaled down, decision was taken to extend, in other words, with continue with the status of the person. So if they're on bail, their bails will be extended. They're bound over to return, they would be bound over, even though they're not there. And of course, they're in custody, they'll be remanded in custody. That being said, even if they're in custody, it doesn't stop the court from considering bail, or if attorneys so wish, they can get in contact with the court for bail to be considered, especially in these extraordinary times. And of course, they don't need to come to court. Although it's noteworthy that persons are so concerned about attending court. I think it augurs well for the rule of law in Jamaica. But that being said, we have taken the decision to automatically extend their bail, and then when normalcy resumes, every step will be taken to inform the public. And of course, in this media landscape, it's now easier than ever before to inform the public of their dates or what they need to do to check to see when their matter was adjourned to.
Thank you very much, Judge. You wanted to say something, Minister?
Let me just say that to all litigants in the courts, now is an opportunity to rethink your case. The courts have said that, you know, guilty pleas will be accepted. And especially in the parish court, Judge, I would say that persons with minor offenses who know they're guilty, speak to your lawyer with a view to come in and set your plea guilty, and at this time I'm sure the judges will hopefully extend a lot of mercy and don't send them to prison. But, you know, this is the opportunity to close your case. It is the same with litigants in the civil matters. If the participants, especially the attorneys, can discuss, mediate, and Christopher Malcolm will probably tell us later, if you can settle your matter, then you can come to court and get a consent judgment. That would ease the burden when the courts reopen. So I'm asking persons to take the opportunity to reflect on their matters and see to what extent they can be expedited, so when the courts fully open again, that their matters would have been cleared up and they're not part of the long line that will be there to set the matters or to put future dates in, ahead. One thing I heard which should be noted is that in the bail application, and Kadiesh can assist us some more in this, that bail applications have been done remotely. I heard a defense counsel told me that this was fantastic. He was in his office. The accused was brought to the court at St. Andrew Parish Court. The DPP, the Crown Counsel was at the DPP's office, and the judge was either in his chambers or at the Supreme Court, so that they were not together in the court. They were on screen, and the application was made, the Crown Counsel responded, and the judge decided whether or not the accused got bail. And that is what I think is happening now in terms of bail application.
Yes, Minister.
You can expand a bit more on it.
And we encourage persons that if you have somebody who is in custody, attorneys, if you have someone who's in custody and you want the person and you're seeking bail for your client, then you just need to call the courts, as Judge said earlier, and we will do our best to facilitate the bail hearings by electronic means. Importantly, for those persons who are in the parish of St. Catherine, bail matters are being handled by the Supreme Court for those persons, because that court is closed because of the curfew orders. Also, for persons who have bail reporting conditions in the parish of St. Catherine, those have been suspended. So if you live in the parish of St. Catherine and one of your bail condition is that you report to a police station in the parish of St. Catherine, that reporting condition has been suspended. If you live outside the parish of St. Catherine and you have a reporting condition which says you must report to a police station in the parish of St. Catherine, then that reporting condition has also been suspended.
All right, thank you very much for that contribution. Just before we go to Mr. Faulkner to hear from the Legal Aid Council, a quick question for you, Minister Chuck. Prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, it was announced that 4 additional family courts were to be established. Are those plans still on the way?
Absolutely. Not only are they on the way, but contracts are being negotiated now. We have the St. Anne, in St. Anne, we hope to put one there. And we are renovating a facility in Manchester to put one. The Portmore Family Court is under consideration, so that everything is in place. And I've been meeting with my property technical team while there's some time now to make sure that sometime soon these developments can start as soon as the opportunity arises.
All right, thank you very much for that. So we're going to go to another commercial break on Nationwide News Network. So listeners, you will join us back shortly, but we'll continue with our town hall meeting. And at this time, let me put another question to you, Minister. Or perhaps it's Kadiesh. Bearing in mind what has been happening in terms of the different attempts that have been made to use technology to allow the matters to proceed at this time. After COVID-19, is this a sign of things to come?
Well,
can I stay at my chambers and argue with Mr. Faulkner from his chambers and appear before Judge Chester Crooks in a bail application?
Andre, you would remember that sometime a few weeks ago, or maybe in February, Minister, we had the technology conference. And that sent the signal to the entire justice sector that we were going to be using technology to enhance our services. Certainly, from the judiciary's perspective, the Chief Justice, it is in our strategic plan that we will be using technology to transform the service that we provide to the citizens of Jamaica. Technology is central to our best in 3, best in 6. That's been the best in the Caribbean in 3 years and among the best in the world in 6 years. Technology is central to that. And as such, this is something that we, and the Chief Justice has already signaled, this is something that we are looking to continue post-COVID because it proves to be a more efficient use of our resources.
There's no doubt, Andre, that technology is going to revolutionize and transform the justice sector as it is transforming business, transforming government. Just this week, I chaired a committee in Parliament where it might be that we have a virtual Parliament. You may have a quorum, but there are persons from the country areas, MPs from the country areas, who may not necessarily have a matter to present in Parliament, who might be able to stay in his office and vote or respond to questions, you see. So that is possible. I know, I can tell you Cabinet is doing that so we can, communicate with one another via Zoom. And I think the court very likely starting now, because we hope to put in all the electronic material in the courts. And so it may well be possible outside a trial, because the trial, it might be useful for the accused and the personnel to be there. But you take the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal may well be able to conduct its business via technological means. The same with case management. I don't necessarily think that all the attorneys have to be there sitting in chambers with the judge. Restrictive covenants. These are matters where you don't have the accused there, and at the end of the applicant, the attorneys can stay in their office and respond to queries from the judge or from NEPA or from the parish council, as the case may be. So there's no doubt that technology is going to transform and ensure that our judicial system, as the learned Chief Justice has said, certainly become the best, one of the best in the world within 6 years.
All right. Thank you very much, Minister, as we welcome the listeners back from Nationwide News Network. And we're going to move straight into the presentation now of the Executive Director of the Legal Aid Council, Mr. Hugh Faulkner. Reminding you, you can send your questions on all the social media platforms, Slido, Zoom, and also bear in mind that the code, the event code, is Access Justice. Yes, Mr. Faulkner.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Earl. And thanks for the invitation to be part of this panel by the Ministry of Justice. The Legal Aid Council, we have a mandate to provide access to justice for the public. And we regret the onset of the COVID-19, but as far as is possible, we have to work within the disaster risk management rules and provide our service. Because as you know, we provide service to persons who come in contact with the criminal law. And a person who has been taken into custody, notwithstanding what is happening epidemiologically, would still need assistance. So what we have done, we have adjusted our operations. So we do not have our full complement of staff on any day, but we have staff to provide the services. We encourage our clients, you do not have to come into the office. You can contact us by any of the electronic platforms. Telephone 948-6999. 948-7275, 948-6772 also can be contacted. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would also invite persons who need assistance to access our website. If you access our website, it will lead you to our Twitter handle, Instagram, and Facebook accounts. So you can get all the information you need. Between March 8 and April 21, notwithstanding our reduced operations, we still had 137 consultations, mainly by telephone. We did 37 duty counsel assignments. That's for persons who are to do question and answer, ID parade, or to make bail application. And we did 72 court assignments. I know the courts have restructured, so those matters at the appropriate time, people will get legal representation. As far as our justice mobile units are concerned, that requires us to scale down a bit at this time. So we had a few events, including a fair put on by the Customs of Manchester. We also had an event with the Custom Brokers Association, 3 events with the Social Development Commission in Clarendon, and we apologize to the public, but those events, as soon as the atmosphere is correct, we'll resume those contact with persons. But for now, persons can get our services by phone. You do not have to come in. For the 1 or 2 who comes in compliance with the law, you must be in a mask. You will sit 6 feet from the customer service reception clerk. Sanitization as you come in, desk, chairs, pens, everything will be sanitized before and after. So we encourage the client to contact us electronically and you'll be assisted.
I'd just like to add and support what Hugh has been saying. So unfortunate that the mobile buses, which are now ready to go into the communities, we have had to suspend it. Yes. But as soon as we overcome this crisis, we will be going back into the communities. But in the interim, persons who need legal advice or need legal assistance can contact the Legal Aid Council. More importantly, I would like to say, if anyone is in difficulty, especially if they are arrested and taken to a police station, you can always call the Legal Aid Council to get a duty counsel to come and assist you at the police station or wherever you may need assistance. It might be a custody matter, might be an abusive matter that a woman is being beaten up by her spouse and she needs legal advice how to get a restrictive order. You can call the Legal Aid Council, and Legal Aid Council will provide a duty counsel to assist that abused spouse to get assistance. And I just want to remind all attorneys that if in fact you're providing assistance to your client at the police station, or you have to go to court to provide assistance, you're exempted under the disaster risk management.
Yes.
So that we have specifically put exemption to attorneys who have business to conduct at the police station or in the courts.
So criminal defense practitioners.
That is so.
Yes.
But once
not
you
a
have
conveyance,
well,
for example,
family
or commercial. Yes.
Not if you're going to your client to do a civil transaction.
Right.
We're talking about where you
Criminal
have
defense law.
a litigious matter in the court or a matter that your client needs assistance at the police station.
Yes, and that's a very important point, because the duty council, as you were saying, Minister, and Hugh,
They're available.
they are available there, notwithstanding the fact that there may be a curfew on, or the fact that we are dealing with COVID-19, they are still accessible.
That
They're
is
still
correct.
accessible.
Yes.
And in fact, as you know, the state of emergency continues. So the duty council visiting is also appraised of the respective protocol. Normally we would greet our clients with a handshake, etc. But for this period, we keep the social distance. If we are to engage with the card of the person in custody at the lockup, all the sanitization processes take place, but at least representation. Plus we have also filed application objecting to detention to the tribunals of the state of emergency, the review tribunal. So the work goes on, but albeit at a reduced pace. But it goes on, and the public has access to justice. And as Minister indicated, the matters of domestic violence, the complainants can call us. We'll advise them as to the remedies, whether protection order, whether occupation order. But we are mandated actually to represent the accused person. But we will direct the complainant, inform them of their rights, and direct them to the prosecutorial limb and to victim services.
Thank you for that, Hugh. We have a question from the media here. Can you elaborate on the issue of guilty pleas in terms of the numbers of guilty pleas that have so far been made with this offer?
I don't know if the Chief Parish Court Judge would assist us. What is quite clear is that persons who would like to plead guilty can inform their attorneys, and the attorneys would make arrangement with the courts to be able to go to court and do so. If they don't have attorneys, I would strongly advise them to get in touch with the Legal Aid Council, because we don't want people who are not guilty to plead guilty. Yes. So that it's best to get advice from the Legal Aid Council, and the Legal Aid Council would best be able to advise them and possibly assist those persons who don't have legal representation to access the courts. And I'm sure that Chief Parish Court Judge, I don't know if you want to elaborate, how available would you be, or the parish courts, if persons want to have a plea guilty or to have a consent order being dealt with?
All right. Well, let me choose my words very carefully now. The thing is, I don't want the impression to be given that the access to justice is only for persons who are willing to plead guilty. It's access to justice for all. However, that being said, we're living, as you said earlier, Andre, we're living in abnormal times. The thing is, though, there are some persons on any given day who want their matters to be dealt with expeditiously. And as much as we can, because it's about access to justice, as much as we can, we'll accommodate matters where it can be significantly shortened if the person wants to take a certain course in terms of pleading guilty, and the matter can be dealt with very quickly. The best practice that they ought to have the benefit of counsel, whether the legal aid or someone. Even if they don't have counsel, I can tell you that I can speak for my members with confidence that we ensure that we protect their legal rights as much as possible. So it's really access to justice for all, but in terms of getting matters off the list, in terms of persons wish to plead guilty, and there are relatively minor matters, we'll accommodate it.
And there is, in fact, another question from media. Can you elaborate also on the matter of emergency matters, whether this is you, Judge, or Kadiesh? Can you also elaborate on the matter of emergency matters relating to children being heard during this time? Please say what constitutes these emergency matters, and the numbers also would be appreciated.
We don't have the numbers now. We have to allow the statistics unit to gather the data from all the family courts across the island. So we don't have the numbers now. However, under the Child Care and Protection Act, there are some stipulations of the time within which the matters involving children are to be dealt with. Judge can speak more specifically to those matters, but certainly we want to ensure that any matter involving a child is dealt with expeditiously as much as we possibly can.
The judges in the various children's courts, they have the ultimate discretion in terms of determining what are the emergency matters. But usually in terms of children, you have applications where children are in need of care and protection and so on. And of course you have children who might be in places of safety. We don't want them to get lost in the system, so as much as possible, the court will review those matters. Of course, we do it against the backdrop of all the safety measures in terms of if it can be accommodated electronically. In order to bringing persons to court is an absolute last resort. Other emergency matters, I know these, we have domestic violence matters and so on, but in terms of children, the priority is just to ensure that they're not lost in the system, and we ensure that their welfare is taken care of. But we, as Kadiesh said, we don't have those numbers yet. Right.
All right, just want to ask Kadiesh again at this point, if you could just give the listeners and the viewers some kind of indication for those who have heard and seen what has taken place so far in this town hall meeting and want to refresh their memory or they didn't get a particular point. Is there a place that they can go and get all of this information?
Well, we are encouraging persons to go to the websites, the Court of Appeal website, the Supreme Court website, the Parish Court website, the Court Administration Division website. You can go there and you can find the information. There was a practice direction which was issued by the Court of Appeal. It is on the website. There was also a practice direction issued for the Supreme Court that is also on the website. So you can go through those and you will see. Now, we are encouraging persons as well to use the emergency call center. Use the emergency call center. Most of your questions can be answered through those means, through those channels. So there are telephone numbers as well as there's an email address. I'll just go the telephone numbers again, Andre. It's 1-888-429-5269. That's 1-888-429-5269 or 876-908-0138. That's 876-908-0138 or 876-754-3662. And there are additional numbers. They're all on the websites. If you go on, you will find them there. So make use of those. As I said earlier, in more instances than not, if you contact the emergency call center, you will not need to proceed to one of the court offices.
May I just add to Andre? The Chief Justice, to his great credit, has set up the COVID-19 stakeholders meetings, and I understand they meet regularly to really sort out all the issues, so that if there are litigants who have problems, get in touch with their attorneys, and their attorneys can get in touch with the president of the various bar association to bring it to the stakeholders meeting. Because at the stakeholders meeting, the opportunity will be given. The Chief Parish Court Judge sit at that meeting, the President of the Court of Appeal, the Chief Justice, Senior Puny Judge, and several other judges. Many persons sit on a regular basis to respond to concerns and any issue that may be raised.
Thank you very much, Minister. We're going to go now to the Victim Services Division with Mr. Osborne Bailey via Zoom. Mr. Bailey. He's going to be joining us now via Zoom, so we're looking forward to...
Good morning, everyone. I trust we are all making every effort to take good care of ourselves.
Yes, good morning, sir. Good to have you.
Nonetheless, the Victim Services Division of the Ministry of Justice more than ever sees the need to ensure that services to victims is being provided. We realize that despite COVID-19, victims' needs are still there and they are paramount. We provide counseling and technical support services to all types of victims. The division is staffed by persons who are professional counselors and social workers, and the services being offered by the division is all free, and it is offered through 14 parish offices, one in every parish across Jamaica. We continue to provide these services irrespective of the challenges. In the month of March, for example, We saw over 7, we spoke to, related to, sometimes even physically saw, over 700 victims. 368 of them were new victims. That means these were persons who were coming into our offices, or we are meeting them by telephone for video calls for the very first time in the month of March. We continue to provide services with a focus primarily on our vulnerable victims, because we are aware, for example, that children who are victims are not vulnerable vulnerability because of their age, their gender, etc. We ensure that the services are provided. Intimate partner and other forms of domestic violence, we are committing to ensure that the services are provided. Victims of human trafficking, we ensure that the services are also provided on an ongoing basis. And all kinds of children, we try to ensure that they are taken care of. We are pleased to say that with the exception of the St. Catherine office, which on account of the curfew and conditions of operations in the parish of St. Catherine, all of our parish offices remain open to provide services. Whilst most of the uptake has been through telephones, we have had persons who actually have come into our offices, and of course, consistent with ensuring that the appropriate distances and appropriate safety measures, we have been able to provide them with counseling.
I would like to support Mr. Bailey, and unfortunately, not many Jamaicans are aware of that service being provided by the Ministry of Justice. Victim service is a very, very important function of this ministry, because this is the opportunity where persons, at this time, with this pandemic of coronavirus, persons are under stress. I've heard of many cases of persons, trying to commit suicide because of the family, a member of the family has been diagnosed with COVID-19. I want to emphasize to all Jamaicans, being infected with COVID-19 is not a death sentence, and there's no reason to ostracize, shun the family members. We had that problem in several communities where the families feel very stressed out. And this is where, Mr. Bailey, I am going to ask that families who have suffered from this indignity of being scorned because one of their members have become infected, that they can get in touch with you, because many of them need counseling. They feel that the community have ostracized them. And I know of a case in Jacksonville where a young girl, because her father contracted the infection, that she tried to commit suicide, and we had to send counsel to her. I can say across Jamaica, if they are under great stress because of this COVID-19, please note the numbers from Mr. Bailey and get some counseling. Do not take any wayward action that can cause hurt to yourself and your family. And to all Jamaicans, the government is appealing to all Jamaicans. COVID-19 is something that has descended on us. The victims of COVID-19, it's not their fault. So do not scorn, shun, and ostracize them. It's very important. But those who have the problem, please get in touch with the victim services for assistance. Mr. Bailey, could you give the numbers again, please?
Yes, I was just about to share them. The numbers, I'll give two just that are easy to remember. There's 888 victims, which is 888-842-6467. 888 victims, which is 842-6467. And then there is, of course, 876-946-9287. These are our office. If they call any police station in the parish, our numbers per parish is available through any police station, and they will be able to get in touch with us. If they walk into any police station, they will immediately refer them to us. If they walk into any court that is available, they will immediately refer them to us. If they walk into any hospital, that is available. They will also recommend and refer them to us. So we are ready and available to provide them with services. Even in St. Catherine, where the parish office is closed, via referral, we have been able to maintain contact with the victims in St. Catherine. So this offer is to all parishes. And again, we support the request she's being made to provide therapeutic support for families, victims of COVID-19, who really just need to talk through the complications, emotional and otherwise, as it relates to the condition.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to hear from the media now via Zoom. Media is going to be participating at this juncture. I know a number of questions the media has for this distinguished panel, as I ask Dr. Malcolm to stand by to tell us about mediation. So we're going to have the media now with their questions as they participate. Very interesting mask there. Yes. So, the media, I know you have a number of questions for all of the panelists, and so at this time we're going to take that so you can participate. But if they are not ready, yes. Yes, we are seeing you, not hearing you. And all right, while we work that out, I'm going to ask Dr. Malcolm at this stage just to give his brief presentation about mediation and to explain, Dr. Malcolm, what is meant by this renegotiation good offices.
Okay, thanks, Andre. And it's one of the things, we're in interesting times, and you know, there's an old curse disguised as a blessing. So may you live in interesting times.
Yes.
And we are, in fact, in very interesting times at the moment. But one of the things that the courts have supported this very well, actually, recognizing that you need complementary systems to assist the court in the delivery of justice and to assist in the delivery of settling disputes, which may arise in all sorts of contexts. And one of the things that we have been doing pretty well in Jamaica over the last many years is using mediation. And I think most Jamaicans by now have a sense of mediation and how it works. And the Ministry of Justice itself, in very recent times, has this big sign up all over the place saying, mediate rather than litigate. So the messaging has been very clear. But there is, however, a range of options that are available to persons having disputes that can assist them to settle them. These include a long list, but three of the ones I want to focus on for the moment are good offices, renegotiation, and mediation. Now, you asked specifically about renegotiation. What is this? When you enter into any type of relationship, business or other relationship, then you, certainly from a commercial perspective, you have contracts being at the core of those relationships. And the contracts would ordinarily set out what the performance obligations of the parties are. Now, we are in a time period, a very interesting time period, where persons on either side of a contract are finding it difficult to honor the terms of their contract and to then meet their performance obligations.
Yes.
What do you then need to do? You clearly, even before you get to mediation or any other method, you need to find a way to bring the parties together so they can themselves speak to see how it is that they can bring their contract into realignment, having regard to the times and with an eye to the future as well. So they can, for example, engage in these new contractual negotiations, which is where we call it renegotiation. And in that context, say, okay, fine, you should have delivered 20 bales of ice on a particular date. How can we change that date? Or change the delivery circumstances and so on, and then have that be treated as a new term in our contract. And you can do it on a permanent basis, or you can do it for a suspension period. So there are a number of things which are there, and my suggestion is that this method be one of the ones that we consider first, because you have pain sufferers on every side of a contract in this period.
And how would they go about doing that?
They go about it is that it has to be a facilitated period. And what we are now encouraging is that you have access to all the systems that you have available, Zoom, telephone, and there are special mechanisms that are out there which are purpose-built, which allow what are online dispute resolution systems to allow people to meet. And the beauty about these systems, the ones that are purpose-built, they give you all the physical features of, say, a regular mediation. You have the opportunity to go into caucus rooms. You have the opportunity to speak in plenary. You have the opportunity to do all of these things. And you have the opportunity as well to have a fair and reasonable third party assisting, both for mediation and for renegotiation and so on. And good offices, of course, is in the same vein.
Yes.
You think of a priest you know, that you think knows the parties well and can help you to speak well, then you do that. You think also of how it is that you're going to be able to get somebody who persons will listen to, because that is the key to good offices. Good office is about getting someone who understands the problems that the parties are likely to have, who is trusted by both parties, and who can get them to speak to each other, which then ends up assisting you in the process of renegotiation, yes, if you need that, and also in the process of mediation or any other. There are, of course, other methods that are available: arbitration, adjudication, expert determination, and so on. But my view is that this time, those are not your best friends. Right. They're adversarial in nature, and they're pretty much litigation-oriented in terms of how they function. So those are not going to be the best things for you at the moment.
Thank you. If I might just fully support what Dr. Malcolm is saying. Jamaicans, like many litigants across the world, want to get everything. In any dispute, if you try to get everything, you may end up losing everything. And that is why mediation, arbitration, renegotiation are very important strategies to get satisfaction in disputes. Yes. The judge will tell you sometimes it's very difficult to make a decision between two competing parties. And one is going to win and one is going to lose. In mediation, you can so negotiate so that it's a win-win situation, each person giving up something. And at the end of the day, it seems to me, we must, Jamaicans, try to look at mediation as an alternative to litigation. Yes. Let only the most difficult cases come to the judges to decide.
It's faster, it's cheaper,
much
and
cheaper.
all of that. All right, we're going to go now. We have a question from the media on Zoom. I'm going to ask the media personnel to raise their hands each time so we can recognize them and identify where they are coming from, which media house they represent. The first person is Garfield Angus from JIS. Yes, we are looking for Mr. Angus. Yes. Go ahead, please, if you are hearing us. Just reminding media who are joining via Zoom, just give us a raise of hand so that we will know that you are ready to speak. All right? Yes. Mr. Angus? All right. Well, whilst we sort that out, because I know the media have a number of questions and they want to participate at this stage, one of the questions that I have for the Honourable Minister is, Minister, we have been hearing, and Mrs. Fletcher raised it in her presentation, that the Honourable Chief Justice had indicated last year that there was a projection, a plan to make Jamaica the best justice system in the Caribbean within 3 years and one of the best internationally within 6. Are we still on target for that?
First of all stakeholders,
yes,
all Jamaica must support the Chief Justice. And
no, but I did not indicate. I did not indicate.
I think you see, Andre, that whether this COVID-19 pandemic will slow the pace, it's only the Chief Justice that can say whether or not, but I have no doubt that we are still on target as we try to improve the delivery of service, infrastructure, the technology, and therefore we are hoping that that ambition can still be satisfied.
Okay, well that's very good news. All right, I think we are ready. Thank you, Minister. I think we're ready now for the media, and we're going to ask the media now to participate. Not ready for them yet? All right. I have another question. Let me direct this one to the Legal Aid Clinic. What are the exact matters that the clinic can add? Oh, I'm expecting he's not here just now. I don't know.
I can just give some assistance.
Generally speaking, yes, Minister.
Right. There's absolutely no doubt that the Legal Aid Clinic will respond to all issues. Even if they can't give a definitive answer, they will be able to access information to be able to provide the response in due course.
Yes.
Now, the Legal Aid Clinic does not represent everyone, only where they're indigent clients who can't afford an attorney, and the Legal Aid Clinic will ensure by a means test to determine whether or not they would assist that client. So a means test is utilized in making that determination.
All right, thank you very much. We have another question here from Slido with reference to the strategic plan for the Jamaican judiciary. What can be done to ensure we still achieve the targets post-COVID-19? Example, the clearance rate and so on. I don't know if that's Kadiesh or Judge.
All right. Well, if I may be so bold as to speak for the Chief Justice, and I hope I have no regrets later. All right. The thing is, in every crisis, there is an opportunity for positive change. For years now, we have had the technology at our disposal. Legislation has been amended where we could utilize technology, and I think we haven't been doing so. Happily, in terms of the chief strategic plan and the targets we had, well, I can speak for the parish courts at least, we were actually either on target or ahead of the target. You see, what has been happening over the years is that our predecessors, Jamaica has been blessed by very good judges or very good court staff. And what is happening is that the strategic plan is basically formalizing and documenting what we have literally been doing and we have been learning and passing down from generation to generation. So we're literally on target. We're literally on target or ahead of the target. Yes, this the COVID crisis is a bit of a blip, but I think what we're learning now, we have had to utilize the technology to enhance our processes, and I suspect that afterwards, we'll have to keep on using technology to enhance what we already have, and this is actually a work in progress. So I think, or for instance, the setting of dates ahead. We're not just setting dates for setting dates' sake. Some of the matters, there's an emphasis on the part heard matters and the trial matters, especially the older ones. So some of the dates that we set, of course, we're watching it because we're adjourned we're in an adjournment mode until May 11th. If it goes on beyond that, we have a contingency plan for dates beyond that. But once we set the dates, we'll have a date where we set, hopefully, short trial dates to ensure that trial certainty dates and part heard matters can go on and so forth. So I think it will have an impact on our targets, but I don't think it's a fatal impact, for want of a better word.
As you raise that matter about dates, Judge, a question that comes to mind is, if it is that I had a matter set for hearing during this COVID-19 period,
yes,
and it obviously has to be adjourned,
yes,
will I lose my place in the queue? So would a matter that is not set during this period and is set for, say, October, go ahead of mine, or is it that all the matters now that are being suspended and adjourned would precede those which are set for later dates?
Well, speaking for the parish courts, we don't really operate with a queue system. Normally, priority is placed on matters involving, the age of the matter, because the older matter, the more we want to dispose of it. The types of witnesses, for instance, from a criminal standpoint, we have vulnerable witnesses, children and so on. Again, priority is placed on those kinds of matters. In terms of setting dates ahead, speaking for the parish courts, of course, the priority to be on matters that were already in train. Those are the part heard matters, all the trial matters, and so on. And on a daily basis, I can tell you, the courts, by way of case management and so on, they evaluate the list and so on. In other words, we don't just adjourn matters lightly. If matters are going nowhere, I'm sure the various clerks of the court or defense counsel, well, if defense counsel don't do it, will be pressed by the court as to why should this matter be kept on the list and so on. So there are many factors that have to be considered in terms of how the dates are set. But no, in terms of the queue, what we're focusing on is really trial date certainty. So the priority, of course, we put on matters that are already part heard, the extraordinary public interest in the matter, vulnerable witnesses, and so on. So there are many factors that are considered.
Thank you for that, Judge.
Let me just say, Andre, that this COVID-19 could be a blessing in disguise. Not that we want it or we are happy with it, but to the extent that it is forcing the courts and persons to look at alternative ways to speed up matters and to resolve matters.
Yes.
It seems to me that the opportunity has been taken by the courts now to get used to the technology.
Yes.
So
But a question here for you, Minister, from Facebook is, to what extent or how can restorative justice assist with domestic violence cases?
Oh, there's no doubt that the justice centers are still available, and there are a number of persons who have been trained in restorative justice. Persons who need assistance can always call the Parish Justice Center, or if they can't get through, to call the Ministry of Justice. And our team is still operating and providing assistance for restorative justice. In truth, most domestic matters can be resolved with using restorative justice. If we get the parties together and the practitioner can speak to both the parties, a lot can be accomplished, because in most of these domestic matters, restorative justice is a key enabler to get the parties to really resolve their problems.
All right, and Kadiesh, a question for you. Why are divorces, the decree absolutes in particular, not being signed? Is it that the Supreme Court is totally out of operation?
I don't think that that is correct, that divorces are not divorced. It says the absolute are not being signed. That's not correct. Our judges are in fact working. We are working on some of these divorces, for example, which can be done on paper. So we are working on those to get those out of the system. What we do have sometimes are challenges with the requisitions, with the errors on the forms, and so on. But yes, our judges are signing the decree absolutes.
And my understanding to Andre is that quite a number of matters, not only in the divorce section, but the probate section, that they're being dealt with in matters of weeks and months now, rather than the years that they used to be. So that I don't know if that person who was asked that question has a problem. They should bring it to the attention of the registrar, because matters are being dealt with expeditiously. Indeed, my understanding, I've heard from many attorneys, that judgments, a lot of things are happening now, because with the judges at home, for example, they've been able to have more judgments being delivered, and a number of matters such as the divorce decree absolute are being signed.
In fact, I'm glad you raised that, Minister, because I know this one is near and dear to your heart. You feel very strongly about the matter of judgments, all the outstanding judgments being delivered. So do you expect that with the suspension of all the trials in our courts due to COVID-19, there will be no outstanding judgments come September 2020?
I can't speak for the judges or for the Chief Justice, but I'm aware that the Chief Justice has been in touch with all of his judges with a view to, before COVID-19, to get additional time to complete the writing of judgments. Let us be very frank. I mean, writing of judgment is not an essay. You know, the judges themselves have to reflect and also read many, many cases. When you read a long judgment from a judge, you will see that the judge has had to read maybe several dozen cases before he actually put that judgment together. Yes. But at the end of the day, I just feel that our judges, and I've said it before, should follow the practice direction of the Chief Justice to try to get their judgments out within 3 to 6 months. So one would hope, as you say, by September, there should be no judgment beyond 6 months. And I hope the Chief Justice has been in touch with his judges to ensure that all the backlog of judgments will be delivered this year.
All right. Dr. Malcolm, you spoke about mediation earlier. Parties listening and watching us now would want to know, who may want to know, how to go about that process. How exactly do they do that?
Okay, well, mediation comes about because the parties agree to doing it. And I spoke about renegotiation earlier. Mediation really is applied negotiation. All that happens in mediation is that you get a facilitator, a third party neutral, who comes to assist the parties to themselves negotiate their own decision. That is all that happens in mediation. There are persons around who are trained mediators, and the court does have a roster of persons who are mediators. And there are other entities, including the Dispute Resolution Foundation of Jamaica. There's a Jamaica International Arbitration Center, which also maintains a list of mediators. So there are opportunities available for persons to make contact, to find a mediator. But there's something else that I want to make clear, that you do not even have to go to a recognized mediator, because the process is that it is party-driven, and it is for the persons to find somebody that they're comfortable with, who can assist them to facilitate. The challenge at this time, of course, is that it has to be dealt with the use of electronic means, telecommunications means, and so on. So you want to know that you can get somebody through Zoom, WebEx, telephone, whatever method you can, and ensure that that person is empowered under contract to be able to give you guidance and advice. And ordinarily, in the case of mediation, persons need to understand that if you engage somebody, there's usually some fee-related element to it that you can pay. But I'm sure in this arena, persons are more than willing to make concessions, even in relation to fees and matters of that nature. But I certainly would encourage, and the minister has said it, that we use those alternative methods, which will have a knock-on good effect as well for the backlogs in the court and all the other things that we're talking about, and may also do something which is good. Because what mediation does very well is that it helps you to deal with a present dispute while enabling you to maintain future good relations, which usually is much better than you'd get out of arbitration, adjudication, litigation, and so on, because the focus of mediation very often is how can we move you to a point where you recognize that there are mutual interests and that going forward relationships are important.
I just want to add again, Andre, that we're always, as a society, democratic society, a society, always going to have disagreements. People are always, there are no two persons alike. So there will always be disagreement and conflicts. When we have disagreement and conflicts, we don't have to resort to the court in the first instance. And that is where mediation comes in, restorative justice, and so on. It's very important that when persons are in conflict, they don't take it out on the street in violence, that they use all the resources that have been provided by the government, restorative justice, mediation, before they actually end up in court. Because I must tell you that both Dr. Malcolm and myself were in Singapore last year, where they had the Singapore Convention on Mediation. And the idea is that the United Nations, UNCITRAL, they're promoting mediation as the primary source of resolving conflicts, because that would take the burden off the courts. And therefore, Jamaica very shortly will be implementing a number of mediation acts to let the Jamaican population know that they can use mediation to resolve their conflict rather than resorting to violence or resorting to all sorts of abuses and even resorting to the court procedure. Mediation and the justice centers, which are being set up in all the parishes, will be operational to ensure that people can be referred to mediators in all the parishes, and we're training hundreds of mediators who can undertake that work.
All right. Minister, persons may want to know, how can they access the provisions of the various orders that have, the emergency orders that have been passed by Parliament? Because they have been coming out quite rapidly. Is there a website that someone can go to and get all of this information? For example, the Ministry of Justice.
There have been 4 orders to the best of my knowledge now. Yeah. And they're all gazetted, so they can be obtained from the government printing office. But to the best of my knowledge, they should be on the parliamentary website. I think they're on the OPM website. Minister, yes. So far, I know that some are on the Ministry of Justice website. I can't tell you that the latest one, number 4, is on our website, but before the end of the day, I'm going to ask that it be on our website. So the orders which provide the exemption and all the different orders that have been announced by the Prime Minister, they are available, they were gazetted, and so if you can't get to the government printing office, I'm sure on one of the websites, Parliament, OPM, Ministry of National Security, and I hope Ministry of Justice before the end of the day.
All right, and let me ask you, Kadiesh, in terms of bailiffs in our courts. Bailiffs tend to come in at the end stage of the justice system, whether you are judge, senior judge, Crooks. But in terms of enforcing judgments, what is the status of the operations? Somebody may have gotten an order, for example, to get possession of premises. What happens in that case at this time with the bailiffs?
I'm not entirely sure I can speak for the bailiff in that regard. If it's a court order that has to be enforced, it has to be enforced. I know what has been happening in terms of, well, certain landlord-tenant arrangements and so on. I think a personal decision has been taken by parties to see whether or not they want to hold off on collecting rent, taking matters, action against tenants and so on. I can't really speak for how the bailiffs are acting, but I would say that if there's a court order in place, all things being equal, they ought to be enforced. And while we're on that topic, there was something that was said earlier about the whole thing about mediation. I can tell you, at least from the parish court's perspective, and following on that point, it asked about disposal of matters. Mediation has helped us greatly in that regard. Civil and criminal. It has helped us greatly in that regard in terms of case management.
In fact, many persons may not know, senior judge, that mediation also applies to the criminal matters. But to certain matters, can you give an indication of the sorts of criminal matters that can be mediated?
Yes, and in terms of the parish court is usually relatively minor matters, unlawful wounding, assault, OB, harm. In some instances, there is of course, a lot of the criminal matters do arise out of domestic disputes. Or some difference of opinion. We'll have persons come before the court for larceny, but sometimes the parties are known to each other, and it's actually, let's say, a contractual arrangement that went bad. I also have to give a shout out to the probation officers, although before they were, some of them are trained mediators, but they do a stellar job in helping us to resolve a lot of disputes, again at the civil and the criminal level in terms of mediating between parties. And because as we have explained to persons who sometimes are resistant to mediation, that if we adjudicate on the matter, if there are underlying issues, when you go out there, the problem will still be there. And restorative justice has also helped us a great deal in that regard, because restorative justice, they provide this service free of charge, and that helps parties as well.
I want to thank Chief Parish Court Judge Chester Crooks emphasizing that point. Because we have heard from many parish court judges how useful it is. Because when 2 parties come to court, one a victim, one an offender, in 90% of the cases, they're well known to one another.
Yes.
And if they can just really get a third party, which oftentimes the judge doesn't want to be, because oftentimes the judge has to make that final decision. The judge usually referred to a restorative justice facilitator, the probation officer, or to mediator, to see if the parties can really reconcile. That doesn't mean that in a criminal case that the offender is going to get off scot-free. Yes. But it may well assist the judge in saying, because you have reconciled, I won't worry to think of a long prison sentence or a prison sentence. Or may well say, maybe can you compensate the victim?
Yes.
And in the circumstances, that is a very strong mitigating factor for the judge in imposing sentence. So that we have to appreciate that in all of these disputes, if the parties could just get someone to speak to them and bear in mind mitigating factors that can be brought to the judge, it can assist the judge in determining the final outcome. So really and truly, we have to assist our judges in coming to their decisions.
All right, so in the final minutes that remain, I'm just going to give each panelist a 30-second opportunity to wrap up. Emphasis on second. You want to start? Let's start with you, Dr. Malcolm.
Now is a good time for us to engage with the court in their open process. In the Supreme Court, you know, there's a Part 25 which allows for these court management orders to be made. And the courts, in fairness to the courts and to the Chief Justice, they have been encouraging the use of alternative dispute methods. And we are saying that these systems are complementary, cannot get rid of the court, and we need to use them more and encourage ourselves not to overburden the court. To ensure that important matters get there and we do the best we can to resolve disputes where we're able to.
Thank you for that, Dr. Malcolm. Mr. Crooks, Senior Judge.
Yes. I would just like to thank let me thank the Chief Justice first of all for his collaborative approach. He has kept us in the loop every step of the way. And sometimes so much so I'm wondering if we at the parish court level are his favorite sons and daughters. And I'd also like to thank my fellow parish judges and especially the support staff and the staff at Court Administration Division and the stakeholders from the private bar. We're all in this together, and the spirit of cooperation is actually very inspiring. And I'd also like to especially thank the staff from St. Catherine, because although the parish is under curfew, the majority of the staff at the corporate area parish courts are made up of persons from St. Catherine, and they, I know it's an extraordinary sacrifice, but they come and they perform above and beyond the call of duty. So I thank them for that.
Thank you very much, Judge. And Kadiesh?
I just want to remind members of the public that they can take advantage of the emergency call center that we have established. And the numbers again, 888-429-5269. That's 888-429-5269. That's a toll-free number. There are other numbers which are listed on our websites. More often than not, if you call the emergency call center, you will not need to proceed to a court building for your safety and for the safety of our staff. And I also want to join with Judge Crooks to just commend our staff for the sacrifices that they are making in enabling the courts to continue to operate even in this limited way, because we do provide essential services to members of the public. There are a number of Jamaicans who depend on us for their livelihood. If you're to take into consideration recipients of maintenance payments, for example, they depend on us to collect those monies to make the payments to them. So we want to commend our staff for that and to ask them to continue to provide this kind of service to the people of Jamaica. Make use of the call center and you will not have to go down to the court offices, just for your safety and for the safety of our staff.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fletcher. And Minister?
Well, I just want to thank all the listeners and viewers who have kept with us this morning. We certainly would like to hear from them a feedback as to whether town hall meetings, virtual town hall meetings like this are very receptive, and if they appreciate it, it's something that we could do again, because it gives the opportunity for people to interact with the justice sector, whether it is the court system, the victim services, legal aid, Administrator General. We haven't brought in the Administrator General or the DPP. All of these agencies, hopefully, sometimes we can have this virtual town hall meetings with them. I think it's important that we let the public at large know that justice is accessible. And if they, rather than criticizing and complaining about the service of the justice sector, make suggestions as to how we can improve. We have a Chief Justice and outstanding stakeholders in the justice system who are doing their best to ensure that justice services are well provided, and we ask for their suggestions, and I'm sure the Chief Justice will respond to as many of them as possible.
Thank you very much, Minister. I want to thank all our panelists, Honorable Minister of Justice, Delroy Chuck, QCMP, His Honor Mr. Chester Crooks, Chief Parish Judge, Mrs. Kadiesh Jarrett-Fletcher, Mr. Hugh Faulkner, Mr. Osborne Bailey, the organizers from the Ministry of Justice for this Digital Townhall, the media, members of the public, listeners on Nationwide News Network. So we weren't able to take all your questions, but certainly we'll try to answer them at a later date. I agree with Robert Schuller, who said, tough times never last. Tough people do. We are tough people. Stay physically distanced and socially connected. I'm your host, Andre Earl. Have a great afternoon.
We're taking justice to the people of Jamaica. Justice is your right, and we're making it easy. Balancing rights and responsibilities, yeah. A first world justice system is where we wanna be. One people, one spirit, one justice. A message from the Ministry of Justice.